Hello! I would like to welcome you to the Laramy-K Optician Works Training Center, where over on YouTube a couple weeks ago, I got a request to do a video about lens washer. So of course I said, sure, I'd be happy to do that. Emailed our friends over at Santinelli International Optical Supply. They sent me their entire tray of lens washer assortment. Some of this stuff, I'm not even sure exactly how it works, but let's find out. Let's talk about lens washer, also known as cheater cord, also known as lens interliner. I almost want to cross that out. That almost gives it an air of respectability that it doesn't deserve. Not my favorite term for this stuff. This stuff is very much like the opposite, that video there. That video, we take a lens that is too large and cut it down to fit a frame. Here, we're going to take a lens that's too small and try to build it up so it fits in the frame. Like cutting down a lens, this is an emergency situation. This is a repair. This is a get by until something better can be done. This is an act of goodwill. This is the severely damaged frame that somebody needs to wear until the new ones come in. I did this several times. We had the local high school, of course, put on plays, and kids would come in. They wore glasses, but they needed some outrageous thing for some kind of theater stuff. And, you'd end up trying to force these lenses into this crazy frame. Sometimes I'd use it for that act of goodwill. This is never, ever about a new frame and new lenses. It'd be like going out, spending $150 on a pair of new beautiful shoes, and you look and it turns out they're actually held together inside with duct tape. Right? It's not okay. You can't do this with new stuff. You will find, once we get over to the bench, that it is often some lens washer, half inch, an inch or so, or half of the eye wire actually works better than trying to do the entire circumference. Because beware of the tongue, kind of like a fishing line when you're doing a semi-rimless. If you have too much lens washer and you go to push that lens in, and I'll show you all this on the bench, you're going to push it out on the other side and you end up with the tongue hanging out. You can usually sometimes trim that with an X-Acto knife, but wow, you're getting dangerous territory there. But remember, we are talking about a goodwill situation, an emergency, a get by. So if this happens, well, it's not exactly the end of the world. Now, in our opening sequence, you saw we had the lens stretcher and the frame shrinker. Well, there is actually a way to shrink a true, real Zyol frame covered in that video right there. Yeah, heat the living heck out of it, plunge it into a bucket of ice, and that frame will actually shrink up if it's real good old-fashioned Zyol. Another trick along these same lines. All right, we've got our tray here from Santinelli International Optical Supply. We've got 3 different products to try. I've got a metal frame. I've got an acetate. I think it's a TR90. Lens kind of falling out and loose. Let's see if we can use our lens washer and fix the problem. Rather than trying to damage a frame to make this work, I instead sort of damaged the lens. Here you can see we have actual gaps between the lens and the eye wire, and the lens will quite literally fall out of the frame. This is the double-sided tape style. It was always my favorite, my go-to. I always had a bag of this taped to the side of my parts cabinet. The question that came in on YouTube mentioned a liquid. Basically, this is the liquid, just placed in a different form. And I think this is a little bit easier, a little bit neater to work with than that. And all you're doing is running, and of course this is incredibly hard to say, you've got maybe, 2.5, 3 millimeters tops right there, and you're trying to kind of cover the bevel with it. And you find with a little practice, you can get pretty good at this. Let me get it started there. And you can kind of use your thumb to kind of guide things a little bit. Like so, kind of pinch between it. And again, you can use as much or as little of this as you feel you might need. Now, this lens was literally falling out of this frame, so I am going to go all the way around, and there I am. I'm back to that side again. And guys, like anything else, it's just a question of practicing and experimenting a little bit, and sometimes this will work out just fine for you, and the next time it'll be a little frustrating, but push down. All right, now this is kind of the tricky part, oddly enough, is getting this peeled back. Ooh, I think I got it first time. Looks like it. Yes. All right. Yep. All the way around. Now, if you remember, there's a video out there about epoxy repairs, kind of similar to this. And there is a little leap of faith, a moment when you're doing this. Let's get this apart here. Awkward to work in this position and keep it in frame for you, but we're going to open that up. And remember, we're probably talking about a damaged frame, something. So I would actually give this a little bit of a kind of a tug, get it kind of really nice and open for you. If it's down like this and almost closed, it's going to be a lot harder to do. Grab your lens, and this is the tricky part. You want to come through like this and grab it, and you want to get it started there. That looks pretty good. Now I can get that clamp down, get that nice and tight. Yeah, I mean, that lens is just not going anywhere anymore. I mean, try to force it, push. This is going to get somebody by for a good long time without any problems at all, when this lens was quite literally falling out of this frame, and it showed you where the gaps were around that edge. Over on the whiteboard, I mentioned beware of the tongue, and this is what I mean. Just watch for it and either use an X-Acto knife, redo it, or perhaps best just leave things alone. My favorite, really the go-to, is the double-sided tape. We've got two other products to look at. Next, we have a variation of the soft double-sided stuff, and that is the rigid stuff. And this is the original lens liner as I knew it and know it. I'll get you a super close-up of that if I can. It's just simply a V shaped, and this comes in 3 different sizes. We've got a 1.4, a 1.8, and I believe this is a 1.6 if I'm not mistaken. So you just choose the bigger the gap you have to make up, the more error you have, the smaller the lens is, perhaps the larger of this material that you're going to want. Now, this stuff is kind of tricky to work with. It's going to be extremely difficult, almost impossible to do the entire lens. It doesn't stick to this. You can't get it to stay in the eye wire very easily. So generally, you kind of just do a section. Maybe I cut off maybe that much. And what my goal is going to be is to get that. And again, I know you can't see it, but it's a V shape, and I need that V in the proper orientation, like so. It would mimic the bezel of the eye wire. And I get that to just kind of sit in there. Let me show you what I mean. There you go. It's like that. And again, this is going to be really tricky to kind of get this to all go back together, but you can do it and work at it. Again, get that eye wire open nice and wide, and there it goes. It falls out. Always tricky. All right, so I got that in there. You can actually see the liner. It's right there. It's actually just filling up the space along inside this edge, leading edge or nasal edge of the eye wire. It's actually a little bit loose up here still in this gap area, but it really wouldn't matter. I got it in there. I got it to stay. I got things clamped down. And as you can see now, that lens is not going anywhere and it's not falling out. So that's your hard washer or liner. And again, comes in a couple of different sizes. Just play around with it. And yeah, it's tricky as can be. It took me a couple of shots. I haven't worked with this stuff in years. Again, I much prefer the soft, the adhesive one, but if this is what you got to work with, just practice and, patience, and, eventually you will get it to work. I mentioned when we were at the whiteboard that it is often a case of where you only want to use a little bit of washer. Any plastic frame, this is a TR90, that you need to do the repair work on, you're always going to want to just use almost basically as little as you possibly can, because you are forcing the lens into place. It is going to want, of course, to push the washer out with it as it goes around further into the eye wire. This is crazy, super fussy, but you can get it to work if you play around with it a little bit. And again, we're going to look at a product that's supposed to take care of this. Obviously, the adhesive backing would help as well. You could kind of make yourself crazy with this, and I'm sure somebody will come up and say, well, if you did this or you put tape or whatever. All right, I am going to jump in here wearing my red shirt to match my slightly embarrassed red face. We released this video a couple of weeks ago. Right after that, I got a great tip and a suggestion, both oddly enough out of Canada. My friend Pierre up in New Brunswick said that he actually uses the soft latex interliner quite often and really likes it. Felt that I kind of made a mistake by glossing over that one. So I went ahead and got in touch with Hilco, and I got a couple of bottles of that. So we're going to experiment with that and show you how it works. And then David from the, Canadian Optical Professionals got in touch with a tip on how to hold this in place using this. So I'm going to grab that camera, drag it on in here, and let's take a look at those two additional items. All right, we're going to start off with the soft lens cushion or liner. I've got two lenses here. One I really hacked up to mimic a frame that had been stepped on. We'll use that for the second example. This one is just a little bit loose, something that you cut just that tiny little bit small. You want to take that little bit of wiggle out of it. Show you what I mean. That's closed. And I've got just that little bit of wiggle there. I could probably force that lens out if I had to. Yeah, so we want to close that down. Let's do something most guys don't do. We'll read the instructions here on the back of the bottle. It says, use at room temperature, shake well before using, clean frame first, apply a bead of lens cushion in the V groove, allow to cure until transparent, glaze the frame, and peel off the excess. Now, this came kind of as a kit. It came with the bottle, it came with this drip top or nozzle top, and it came with this syringe head. So if we read the complete instructions, it says room temperature 70 degrees. It's pretty chilly in here, so I've got the frame warmer. Shake well before using. Remove dirt and grease, so we're going to actually clean this lens. Use a pin to clear any dried solution. You can use multiple layers. All right, so let's open that up. And we put on this. And then I assume we put on this. Now, I happen to have these sitting around. They are available on Amazon. They come in handy for all kinds of things around the house. I use them for refilling the anti-flat juice in my tires on my mountain bike. They're available on Amazon. You don't need a special permit or anything to buy these. And of course, this has the added advantage of locking onto here where this just slides on. So of course, you always have that potential for it to fall off and create a mess. But we'll go ahead and try this and see how it goes by itself. And it says shake well. let's do that. And what was the other thing we did? Oh, and we were going to clean it. So I'm going to, like I say, actually follow instructions here. I'm going to use my isopropyl alcohol. And I'm going to run that around inside the groove here. Nice and clean. Give that a minute to dry up. Go back to shaking like I'm supposed to. Again, it's kind of cool out here this morning, so I'm going to fire up my frame warmer. Now, this does say it takes about 15 minutes to dry, so we'll do this in stages. We're going to have to do one of our magic fade-in, fade-outs to let it cure. But let's see, I'm going to go from this side. Oh yeah, that works pretty good. Let's see if it'll go stick or if it runs. Oh wow, that actually stays. I'll try to get some close-ups of this. I was expecting that to run, but it actually stays there. Well, that's actually pretty cool. All right, so we're going to need to let this sit for about 15, flip it over, and then do the other side. I think I would be pushing my luck trying to go up along the top edge there, but you can kind of get the idea. That works really, really well. It says you can accelerate the process a little bit. Heating. All right, the instructions said that would be about 15 minutes. I was heating it up. Actually, it was a whole lot closer to 45 minutes for it to go from the milky latex color to clear. I'm still not 100%, but really, really close. So probably one of those repairs you'd want to tell somebody, hey, you're going to need to leave your glasses. Probably don't want them sitting around out front for 45 minutes waiting for this stuff to cure. Let's get that started in there. All right. Let's see what we got here. That was one round. The full circumference of the eye wire. Wow, that is really good. All right. Well, thank you, Hilco, and thank you, Pierre, for pushing me to give this stuff a try. Kind of one of those things I sure as heck wish I knew about and had experimented with a long, long time ago. Definitely now in the toolbox on the hit parade, Hilco lens cushion. Now let's take a look at our other tip. So the tip was combining these two things. Remember, we tried sticking this through and holding it in place and then trying to force the lens in there while you're doing it. The tip was cut yourself off some of that, then cut yourself an equal amount of the double-sided. Let's go ahead and cut that. I know it's down in this corner where I want to get this, so I'm going to. So I got my double-sided tape, then I've got my hard washer right where I need it, where that big gap was in that lens. Okay, I've still got a little bit of a gap there, but of course this is a repair, so that's not a surprise. Let's see if I can get that lens to stay in place now. And this wasn't even so much an example of the repair, but the idea of holding that tricky hard washer in place using the double-sided tape, which definitely seems to work quite well. All right, Dave, thank you so much for that tip. And now back to our previously released content. We have got one more product to look at, and it involves dipping the washer in acetone and then using it on an acetate frame. Now, the first thing I thought of when we started looking at this was, wow, acetone near an acetate frame, that sounds like a recipe for disaster because it'll leave little white dots or damage the frame. And we started kicking this around, and I got in touch with Sios and was talking with them and they said, well, yeah, that, and what about poly? If you have residue of acetone in the eye wire and you put a poly lens in there, well, the product is straight from Europe. In Europe, they do not use poly very much at all. In fact, extremely rare, so it's not a concern for them. With that said, once again, this is a repair. This is a get you by. This is a goodwill kind of thing. So if I'm really careful with what I'm doing, we're going to experiment and see how this goes. Working from the back, I shouldn't leave any white marks or residues or any damage on the frame. And I only need to have that poly lens, if it is a poly lens, stay in the frame for a week or so before it happens to become crazed or cloudy or something. So let's check out the washer that is designed to stick to an acetate frame. According to the catalog, there are two sizes here. 255 is 1.2 millimeters wide and 1/4 millimeter thick. We'll use 256, which is 1.8 millimeters wide and 1/2 millimeter thick. Let's see how this goes. Now, got our acetate frame. We need some acetone. Let's not splash any of that around on anything. That should be enough. All right. And let's cut. Let's see if I can get that out of the way and show you what I'm doing. Maybe just line the upper third of that. About that looks good. Let's see what happens here. Let's see if this shoots across the room on me or not. Nope. Very good. All right. It says soak in acetone, dip in acetone. We're doing that. No real instructions on time or anything. I can pick this up still. Kind of guide things from the back. Okay, yep, that's better. That's sitting down into that groove a little more. Like I said, no video, no instruction sheet with this stuff. I'm sure our European masters are raised on it, but I had to play around with it for about 20 minutes to even start to get the hang of it, and I sure wouldn't be doing it on anything of value quite yet. But after some trial and error, I found soaking it for about a full minute made a big difference. Not perfect, but not bad for the first time either. So what is our takeaway here? Our takeaway is there are no rules. There is no instruction sheet. Find a washer that works for you. Use patience. Stick to it. You can make this stuff work. Again, it's a fix. It's a get by kind of thing. It's a goodwill act. You're not doing this on brand new, beautiful stuff. If in doubt, I would strongly urge you to use the double-sided adhesive stuff. It certainly is far more forgiving than the others are. If you're watching us on Facebook, please give us a like. If you're watching me on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button down there in the corner. Feel free to leave us a message. I'll see you again next week.